everyone, my name is Kat and welcome to my BookTubeAthon 2015 wrap-up video. So you might remember at the end of my TBR video that I mentioned I would put up a wrap-up video eventually, which clearly means 3 months later. I am so good at this. But as we come to the end of 2015, I did want to go back and give a little rundown of that whirlwind week where I read a lot of words in a short amount of time and let you know what I thought about the books that I read. The first book I read was Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor. I read this in 2 days. It's over 500 pages. I don't even know how I did that. This is the follow-up book to Daughter of Smoke and Bone, which I've already read and loved. There's always a certain amount of worry when you love a first book and start reading its sequel because you want it to be just as good as the first book. Days of Blood and Starlight builds on what Daughter of Smoke and Bone started and really carries the story forward, and what a ride it was. This is probably not the best book to marathon because I didn't let myself recover between chapters. I just jumped into the next chapter where more things happened. In this book we are following more characters in different settings. There's a war going on, so it's usually terrible things that are happening. There's lots of conflict, lots of tension, but it's broken up by these fleeting, touching moments between certain characters as they try to make sense of the mess they're caught up in. There are characters I love in this book, and there are characters that I loathe in this book. I feel like that's a good emotional balance to have when reading a trilogy, as you hope for a happy ending for that group of characters while hoping that that certain character dies horribly. Is that just me? That's just me? Okay. After finishing Days of Blood and Starlight, I immediately jumped into Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This might have been a mistake on my part, because as I said, Days of Blood and Starlight is a second book in an already established world, and reading it was like returning to a familiar place. Jumping into Uprooted was like getting on a plane to Paris and ending up on Mars, because that's how it works. It was difficult for me to get into this book. The writing style is very different from Days of Blood and Starlight, and I just didn't click with it at first. I was super confused as to what was going on. The main character was a bit awkward, the other main character was kind of a douche, and I found myself thinking that maybe this wasn't going to be for me. But I kept at it because this was recommended to me by my best friend Aki. This was her favorite book at the time, and I know that she would not give me a bad book. If you have just started this book and are waffling on whether to continue on with it, my advice to you is to stick with it. Get to chapters 4 and 5 because that's when it really starts getting good. The characters start to liven up. The main character grows a backbone as she is constantly trying to protect her best friend and her village and her entire existence and kingdom from a sentient forest. That's another really interesting point of this book. The main antagonist is a forest. It's an entire forest. Top that. The real question is, can a forest be evil? Read the book, find out. During BookTubeAthon, I also caught up on some graphic novels, starting with The Wicked and the Divine, Volume 2, Fandemonium. This volume was just as good as the first volume until it wasn't. Those of you who have finished reading the trade or read issue 11 will know exactly what I am talking about. I'm so upset. 3 months later, I am still so upset. I also read some Wonder Woman, Volume 5 and 6, both of which were excellent. I really, really enjoyed this arc. Black Widow Volume 1, The Finely Woven Thread, and Hawkeye Volume 1, My Life as a Weapon. I read both of these on the same day, and it's interesting how contrasting they are. Clint Barton is at heart a people person and a dog person. Like, he literally saves a dog in the first chapter. Natasha Romanoff, on the other hand, desperately wants to be a loner but can't seem to stop interacting with people and eventually adopts a cat. Who is better? You decide. And finally, the weekend of BookTubeAthon was full of social obligations in the form of an anime convention, so I decided to celebrate that and catch up on some manga. The first 3 volumes of Holic Ray, which is a sequel series to Clamp's Holic, which I loved. I loved the art style used in this series. I loved the characters and the story, and I was really excited that they were doing a sequel series. And that is what I read for BookTubeAthon 2015. Better late than never, am I right? I successfully read 10 books and over 2,200 pages, so That's pretty decent. How did your BookTubeAthon go? And have you been reading a lot since it ended, or do you find you go into a bit of a reading slump after reading so much in a single week? Let me know down below, and I will catch you guys next time. Bye-bye! Oh, Wonder Woman. I forgot Wonder Woman. Shit. How did I forget Wonder Woman?